What happened in Westworld Season 3, Episode 6, Decoherence? And what can we learn for the rest of the season? Let's dig into the episode and find out. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. On this channel we cover Westworld, Lord of the Rings, A Song of Ice and Fire, and much more. If you're interested in that, please click the subscribe button in the bottom right of your screen and the bell icon. Let's start this time with William. We pick up with him after we left off in episode 4. Dolores, as Charlotte, had tricked him into a medical institution so she could get control of his shares and try to fend off Sirac's hostile takeover bid for Delos. That attempt failed, as we'll see later in this episode, but William still ended up in that facility. I said that Dolores tricked him in there, but there is no doubt that he was in need of some attention. And it starts off pretty mildly with a group therapy session, which William torpedoes by coming out with a rather nihilistic view that we're all like maggots on a corpse. So he goes into a one-to-one session where he admits that he killed his daughter. Not that the therapist really notices, because she's just had the data profile download from Dolores, sees some pretty dark truths about herself, and discovers that her husband is leaving her because of it. Dolores' download to everyone is not the central focus of this episode, but the impacts are everywhere. People are going missing and are distracted everywhere. The technicians missed the warning that an unknown protein was detected in William's blood. We assume that this is what Charlotte injected him with in episode 4, and presumably the lack of staff is how Bernard and Stubbs get in there so easily later. Anyway, William is subjected to AR, augmented reality therapy. He's strapped into a chair, goggles are put on him, and the treatment begins. This is all very reminiscent of A Clockwork Orange. This is the third episode in a row that has apparent nods to Kubrick films, after the music from The Shining last episode, and The Masked Ball the episode earlier that was so reminiscent of Eyes Wide Shut. Don't be surprised if there's a 2001 reference in the next couple of episodes. The augmented reality therapy seems to be mostly based on making William go into his mind and uncover the truth about who he is and what he has done. So we have James Delos, the man William condemned to countless iterations of not becoming immortal, chairing a meeting of representations of William from different parts of his life. To be clear, this isn't a simulation per se, it is augmented reality. It seems to be all generated by William's mind and experienced through these goggles, rather than someone else creating the reality for him. But nuances aside, we see William in a discussion group with young William from seasons 1 and 2, the man in black, the character he played while in the park, the philanthropist investor William, and the child William, who we had never met before. And none of them are squeaky clean. Child William invented a fiction where he was brought up by a drunken father, which may have been true, but William himself was clearly very violent from a young age. Young William may have been innocent, but then he became the man in black, so he can't have been that innocent. Philanthropist William was a hypocrite, and the man in black was, well, we know what he was like. The discussion or argument they all have boils down to the issue of whether William's fate was fixed from the start, or if what he did was a choice. William's ultimate answer to this is to reject the premise of the question itself. The session seems to have gone on for far longer than it should have done with all that was going on outside, so he really did have time to work through this. He decides that it doesn't matter if he's been good or bad in the past. Everything he has done has led him to where he is now, so his past selves and actions don't really matter. He underlines this by killing his younger selves in his AR. Now he says he understands his purpose. He's the good guy now. Perhaps we need to start calling him the man in white. It certainly fits with his arc that he seems to have gone all the way down to the bottom and is now going to try to slowly crawl his way back up again. And after this revelation, Bernard and Stubbs find him. Connells showed Bernard where to go last episode, if you remember. Dolores clearly wants the man in black back out into the world, having learned his lesson. Maeve, meanwhile, is back in a simulation, and she's still at the mercy of Sirac, it would appear. He meets her in a simulation of the Sublime, the host heaven where Maeve's daughter is, although this is just an empty version, it would appear. He'd promised her that he would send her to the real one if she got Dolores. She failed first time around, so this time she asks for help rather than just relying on doing it all herself. While her new body is being printed, she takes some recreation time in Warworld, beating up some Nazis and getting some of her old gang back together. Host Lee Sizemore seems to have been stuck in there since she left, and she brings back old Hector by rewriting his code. It sometimes seems like Maeve gets stronger every episode, or perhaps it's just that we see more of what she can do each time. Either way, here she sees into the real world and rewrites Hector's coding, all without herself leaving the simulation. The most intriguing part of this segment, though, is when she goes face-to-face with Dolores, or the Connells version of Dolores. Connell seems very clear that they are different to Dolores Prime, and that they do not know her plan. But the two of them reach a kind of understanding, at least. Dolores accepts that Maeve can't trust her to look after her daughter, and Maeve accepts that Dolores can't trust her enough to give her the encryption key for the Sublime, so it's a standoff. They are both locked into their positions. Tying all of this together, Serac has been biding his time, waiting for his hostile takeover of Delos to go through. He ultimately achieves it by the simple expedient of killing one of the board members, and when it's all gone through, we see his watch go back to being a bit more white. It's a barometer of Rehoboam's divergences, and therefore of how well Serac's plan is going. Clearly, owning Delos is a win for him. Not that Serac does a lot with his new acquisition. He moves the satellites to over the park. I suspect we'll find out more about what that's about next episode. Gets 3 assets transferred out, presumably Maeve, Lee and Hector, but that's not clear, and says that he only really wants the encryption key. Everything else can be destroyed. Charlotte goes on a quick damage limitation exercise, seemingly making a backup of the host data and uploading it somewhere, rescuing Connell's brain pearl and destroying Hector's. Back in the simulation, this clearly ends Maeve and Connell's conversation, and ends Hector as well, more seriously. Maeve is not impressed, to say the least. If she needed a personal reason to go after Dolores, she has one now. And at the end of the episode, we see that her body has been printed again, and she seems to have an ally as well. It could be Lee Sizemore, as he is there, but it could be someone more, well, useful. Maybe even a second Maeve to balance things out a bit against all those Doloreses. But perhaps the most intriguing bit of character development here is Charlotte. She seems to go through with Dolores' plans, but the differences between her and Dolores Prime are getting more obvious all the time. She says that she is scared. She starts to think of real Charlotte's family as her family, and tells Dolores Prime that she feels herself slipping away from us. Her priority at the end of the episode is to get her family to safety rather than follow up on whatever Dolores Prime's plans were. But she fails. The car is blown up, and it seems very likely that this is Serac's doing. He realised that she was the host mole in Delos. Again, though, we do have to note that his realisation that she isn't Charlotte was based on a low, probably incorrect understanding of what Charlotte Hale was like. He says that real Charlotte would never have taken the time to check in on her son. That video real Charlotte sent her son when she thought she was about to die in the park suggests otherwise. Again, we're reminded that Rehoboam, and Serac by extension, simply doesn't understand humans changing for the better. This will surely be important as we approach the season's climax. This season of Westworld is playing not just with themes of free will and predestination, but particularly in this episode also good and evil. William is now self-identifying as the good guy. Host Charlotte was given away by being a better person than real Charlotte was, apparently. Dolores tells Maeve that it isn't about whether they are good or bad, it's that they are both just survivors. And time and again we have seen how Sirach's view of humanity as no more than a den of thugs is played out into Rehoboam's world. People don't improve, their fates are limited. I suspect we will see this view thoroughly debunked by the end of the season. So, where are we at the end of that episode? Charlotte is moving away from Dolores, but is now probably also hell-bent on revenge against Sirach. Maeve doesn't trust Sirach, but has a grievance against Dolores. William seems to be on some kind of redemption arc and will be aided by Bernard. And Dolores and Caleb, well, we'll catch up on them next time. But clearly there's more to Dolores' plan than just releasing that data. But as they got onto that plane last episode, they left the world and people's lives in ruins with that data release. Was it the right thing to do? Perhaps, but the repercussions are huge. Finally, a word about timelines here. It seems, and this is Westworld, so we should be wary of jumping to conclusions, but it seems that this episode finally confirmed that most of what we've seen is occurring at roughly the same time. Sirach's takeover of Delos is linked to Charlotte killing Hector, so that links in with Maeve's timeline. William's time in the facility is linked to the data download, so he and Bernard are also connected in. Of course, we might be seeing things in different realities, like Rehoboam's mirror world or Sirach's simulations, but from what we've seen so far, there don't seem to be too many huge time jumps, at least. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments section below, or join me on Sundays at 5 PM Eastern Time for my pre-show livestream. If you enjoy my Westworld coverage, you may also enjoy my Lord of the Rings videos. There's a link to that on the left of your screen. Or if you'd like to support in Deep Geek or get access to some of the content I create exclusively for my patrons, please click on the link on the right of your screen. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you again soon.